somewhere I probably have a PowerPoint. Right? Okay. So disaster rigging. What?
How to recover from a disaster?
Yeah, how to get
data back when you're burning, looking for words down.
like it blows up. Yeah. Data basically. This became a really big thing after the first the Twin Towers. Does anybody remember that? It was in the 80s. Was it 90? Might be right. Part of what went off then, the financial district, actually they lost $1 billion. It only exists as digits in computers, right? So this became a really big topic. So how do you protect? And there's lots of different kinds that could happen. What are some of the yeah, so natural disasters. Real common. It may become less common in the future because of the way there's failure. Any of you had your computer die? As long as you have a spinning disk. So in a computer like this, that moves, two things: the fans and the disks. And the disks are moving really, really fast. They're still slower than RAM, but they're moving really, really fast. So if anything happens to the balance of that disk, or if you get a speck of dust in there or something, it can just crash. And when it crashes, your computer is dead. So disk failure is fairly common. As I said, I'm going to say move more and more to the solid state, because then you don't have a.
But they still have a mean time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And as often as the mechanical. The other thing that can happen in a computer, not that this is about computers going bad, but they can go bad, is if the fan dies. And one of the ways you know that is suddenly quieter around your computer. And the next thing that you'll notice is smell of electricity. Yeah. Computers are really hot because they have so many circuits crammed into such a small. The only way they keep are built. They're working on better metallurgy, something that wouldn't melt. Would have a higher temperature to melt, but still be as conductive. But getting there, but still. Disk failures. Okay. To recover, you want to figure out some disaster. with your data in tab. There we go. And this is important businesses because business transactions they've made, maybe their secret patents, everything that is in a business is about. So what how much money? So anybody knows? Let's think you're gonna.
But like send your backup database to another state's system.
Right. So you can back up. For one, this is true of all of them. You should back up fairly frequently. But there's another thing. In your data. And again, this is a bit you might have your main offices in LA. Oh, big earthquake prone area. And you constantly be shipping to Montana, New Jersey, shipping them along. Right, it contains all the transactions. So you have two different files. One is your data file, and the data file has actually all and all the structures, so all your table structures, anything else, pretty much everything's in that data file. The log file just keeps track of all these. So what you can do, yeah, but so everybody, you send them initially the backup file. So you just keep shipping them the transaction logs, and they can keep receiving 100% concurrent. Does that make sense? So you can keep things pretty concurrent that way. The computer, the disk failure. What? Anybody here?
An online backup.
Online backup. That's actually one. Would you say to outsource it? You could outsource it. Right. Online backup. Back it up to an external. One of the things about backup is that you should never back up to the same disk, right? Because if that disk dies, what have you got? Nothing, right? You also allow your so we just let everything go to the defaults, but no database administrator would do that. They will probably create a RAID system for the main data. You guys know what RAID systems are? Multiple disks, repeat, where you get copies even on those disks. And then the log file would be on another set of disks somewhere else. And the thing is, you want to minimize the chance of any causing a loss. Does that make sense? So shipping things around the world, that can get really complicated, but it's done all the. Oh, just
Server.
what?
Server data.
I didn't hear what that.
Is that-
In a way, if you can't back up, if you can't ship it all over the world, online backup is actually a pretty good choice.
Yeah.
If you
And
just
cheap.
pay for it, it's cheaper, and they usually promise to make multiple copies so that they don't lose it. You know, like if you back up to Amazon or something, they automatically usually make a dozen copies, and those copies are automatically distributed around the world. They do that for you for all price. Azure, the micro will allow you can similar kinds of things. There's a charge, but it's not prohibitive. There's another strategy that some companies are starting to do, which is to put their whole system on the cloud. So your databases are on the cloud. You know, stuff you get it through the cloud services, which I always thought was a bit weird. So number one for video. The it's the company, Amazon or Microsoft or whoever promises to do all the back, puts that maintenance and restoration for you, so you don't have to do it. So they're going through all these processes of log shipping, keeping things synchronized at different places around the world. They also do the regular backups and all the maintenance and check the health of things. They're doing all of that for you for money. I was looking at Azure recently. The money is not necessarily not cheap. It can cost thousands of dollars a month for like one database if you're doing all of this. But it's arguable that it's cheaper than having your own systems and your own IT people. And
That's the thing, a server could cost you just one.
yeah.
It cost you half that if you bought a server fund.
Right, and if you have your own infrastructure,
Your infrastructure would cost easily cost that.
it would cost that, and then you'd have to have your own people to take care of it. And it's harder to, you'd have to handle all the log shipping and stuff. So some companies, and then I'm going to be almost done because this is just the basic gist. So some companies do keep their load, but they use the cloud for backup, and they use it for peak loads, particularly retail companies. So if you don't want to have to buy enough servers to handle Christmas when most of them are going to, does that make sense? Christmas is suddenly you have a 300% increase in your people coming to you. So if you most in this our economy, for some reason, Christmas is when companies make it or don't. If retail companies, yeah. So that's when all the sales are. But you don't want to have all that stuff idle all year and then just bring it up for Christmas. So what you do is you go to the cloud just for those 2 months or so, spin out your databases there, increase your capacity by 300%, and then in January you pull it all back down, and then you don't have to maintain that infrastructure. So the cloud is an option for disaster management. You're trusting that Microsoft or Amazon or Google will do their job. And a lot of companies don't trust, so that's why they keep it still at home. You're also trusting that they will keep it secure.
The bigger the company, the cheaper it gets.
Yeah. So questions on that? When I'm talking about disaster management plan for the assignment, I think I said it was for the pizza place. There's probably not a whole lot. Now, if it's a chain, then there might be a server somewhere where you can, back it up, a company server where you can back it up and they will keep track of it. Is anybody, I don't know if they still do this, been in, I think it was Safeway about 9:30 p.m. when all their computers go down because they're shipping it all to corporate, all their data. And they may not do that anymore because that's really stupid. But it was because they had to, basically they had to shut down all their computers in long enough to transfer the data to corporate headquarters. And so you could stand in the cash register until it's done. It took about 10 minutes.
I've actually had that happen in the store.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Yeah, and I said I don't know that it still happens because the database stuff is better and you can usually do the shipping without going down. Used to be you'd have to shut down your system to ship it out. But anyway, there might be, for the pizza one, there might be a corporate place where you could just ship your files daily. If it's just a local one-time shop, the typical thing that people do is that they have backups sometimes multiple times a day. They back it up to hard drives. They take the hard drives to like a safety deposit box or at least a fireproof safe somewhere.
Or they take it home.
Or they take it home, which is not so safe.
It's not
That's
on
not so good.
they have their own storage for their.
Yeah, but at least it would need to be like a fireproof box. And then you swap it out. You swap out the disks. Just keep a current set all the time. That's only as good as your last backup, right? So you always could lose data that way. You could lose however long it's been since your last backup. That data is losable. You could lose it. One of the things you have to decide is if that's acceptable or not. Depends on the business, how much loss you can accept that way. Another thing you can do, but this is a bit more expensive, there's a thing called, again, this is a Microsoft thing, there's this mirroring. And again, mirroring has 3 computers involved, that's why it's expensive. You have your main computer, which is the one that's running. You have a backup computer, which is basically a copy constantly being updated from the main. This one's also can be a backup, but its purpose is to be basically a sentinel. And what it does is it pings this computer every millisecond or so to see, are you still okay? Are you still okay? Are you still okay? And then if it pings and nothing comes back, then it shifts the load over to this computer. It's a very expensive solution because it takes 3 computers to keep one healthy. But it is very... 4? Usually, okay.
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends.
The way they describe it on the Microsoft site is usually pretty...
It's one to one, and then...
So you basically have one and then a copy of that.
Right.
And then you have one that's constantly,
in
it's
your
actually
DR.
constantly pinging both
Yeah,
directions.
and if you have a DR, so yeah, it's
Yeah.
a DR situation.
Okay.
But that's usually multiplied by
One for,
or
companies,
however many databases you have.
right, which could be thousands and so.
If you had 3 databases on that server, and it fails, that's the only server. So you'll have another server for your other database.
Right. Yeah, I mean.
I've seen it where they try to put three on one and 3 on another, and then they use one to back up those 2.
Yeah, which.
Horrible, because it can't take the load.
Right.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. You have more of the infrastructure experience than I do. So for your assignment, all you really have to do is think about, for the Pizza Hut, or the pizza place, how would you, what could you do? And it's up to you whether you want to think that there's a corporate thing that you're backing up to. The cloud backup is probably a decent option. Just how would you protect the data for that pizza shop?
I think set more branches. Means
Well, if you have multiple branches, usually
Yeah.
they back up to a central place, a central warehouse or something, because usually the corporate is going to want to. It depends. It depends on the nature of the franchise, probably. Whether if they're franchised out to individual owners, they may not do that, because all they want is whatever the franchise payment is. But they're probably more communication than that, because if it's a franchise, they provide the inventory. So and you pay for the inventory, and you probably get to keep the profit. I don't know. So you pay for the inventory and they keep the profit. I have no idea how a franchise works. All right, so I'll save this and I'll stop this, but is that enough to do the assignment? I'm not being very picky about it.
Is that what you kind of want?
Yeah. I mean, basically all I want for that is to figure out what of these strategies or any others that you can think of would you apply to keep the data safe at the pizza place. It's probably not a huge company, so you're probably not going to be log shipping all over the world. But you could do a cloud backup. For a small company like that, it wouldn't be that expensive. You could also do the swap out drive stuff if you want. Yeah.
I mean, it's just throwing it out there. Something a lot of people fail to do. The more time you do your log ship, the easier it is in there. Because then you don't have to have as much damage.
Right. You have to ship it.
The smaller the files, the easier it is to transport. And you have less chance of failure.
Yeah, a friend of mine who works for an aerospace company, he says that log shipping sounds great on paper, but when you're trying to ship a gigabyte to India over a 2 meg line.
Is this going to do Trans-Pacific line near near Kent? Or they put a new?
I don't know.
Okay, never mind.
Mostly what they've been doing, and kind of wastefully, although it might be good in the end, they've been putting fiber optic lines everywhere. The thing is that they're not going to anybody's houses yet.
Oh, they are in Cambodia.
They're
almost all fiber.
in Cambodia or probably in Korea.
They don't know what to do with it. It was cheaper to put in.
Americans have the slowest internet speeds in the developed world.
Highest price.
Yeah, highest priced and lowest speeds. Yeah. Koreans have some of the best, which is one reason they can make so much money going into games and mining.
Yeah.